The dusty frontier town of Black Hollow rarely slept. Even in the hush of night, the wind howled low through crooked alleys, rattling saloon shutters and stirring the lanterns that flickered along the wooden walkways. In the back corner of the Silver Spur Inn, a room sat dim and quiet, save for the slow, even breaths of the man sleeping inside. His name was Jackson Reeve, once a decorated pilot during the wars out east, now a quiet drifter trying to outrun ghosts and guilt. But tonight, trouble would find him. The door creaked open, slow and hesitant. A woman stepped in, wrapped in a dark shawl, eyes wide and uncertain. Her boots barely made a sound on the floor. The candle on the nightstand barely illuminated her face, but enough to catch the bruises lining her cheekbone and a cut healing above her brow. She looked out of place. Not because she didn't belong, but because she didn't know where she was. "Who are you?" Jackson sat up, voice a growl as his hand reached instinctively under the pillow for the revolver he always slept beside. She froze. "Wait, I was told, they said this was the room. I was told to come here. As a reward." Jackson's brow furrowed. "A reward?" She nodded slowly, shame rising in her throat like a sickness. "For saving the Marshal's son from the barn fire. The Marshal said, he said someone like you might appreciate company." Jackson's voice softened, though his eyes stayed hard. "What's your name?" "Elara." She didn't flinch, didn't cry, didn't beg, but she stood like a woman used to making herself small. Jackson set the revolver back under the pillow. "You've got the wrong room, Elara. And I don't take rewards like that." Chapter 2. Smoke and Silence. The next morning, Elara tried to disappear with the dawn, but word traveled faster than horses in Black Hollow. Jackson found her behind the stables, stacking firewood with one hand and nursing a swollen wrist with the other. "What happened to your wrist?" he asked. She glanced up. "I tripped." "You didn't trip." He stepped closer. "Tell me who hurt you." She looked away, jaw clenched. "Don't matter." But it did. Everything about her mattered. There was something in her, in the silence behind her words, that tugged at Jackson like the wind tugged on old barn doors. Reluctantly, stubbornly, but always. He learned she was working for room and board at the inn. That she had no family left. That she used to sing before her voice broke from smoke during the barn fire. That the Marshal's reward wasn't an isolated incident. It was a threat dressed as a favor. By the end of the week, Jackson made a decision. "You're leaving Black Hollow with me," he said. Elara blinked. "To go where?" "Somewhere better." Chapter 3. A Kind of Fire. They rode westward, following the sun, stopping only to sleep under stars or in half-collapsed barns. Jackson didn't ask too many questions, and Elara didn't offer much. But in the quiet, trust began to grow, slow and cautious, like spring after a hard winter. He told her about the war, about how he flew over enemy lines, dropped fire on towns that looked just like this one, until one day, he dropped fire on a house he didn't know still had people inside. She didn't judge him. Instead, she told him about her mother, who taught her how to survive. About how a man once promised her safety and sold her instead. About how she clawed her way free, only to find herself trapped again in Black Hollow. But freedom wasn't a place, they both realized. It was the look in someone's eyes when they saw you, all of you, and stayed. Chapter 4. Trouble Finds Them. In the border town of Del Oro, trouble finally caught up. Elara had gone into town for supplies while Jackson worked on their wagon. When he saw her coming back with her lips split and fear in her eyes, he dropped the tools and ran. "It was him," she said, voice shaking. "Marshal Bane. He's here. Said he tracked us." Jackson's jaw clenched. "He followed you." "He said I was his. That you stole his property." Jackson's fists curled. "You're not property. You're not his. You never were. That night, they didn't sleep. And when Bane showed up the next morning with 2 deputies and shark guns drawn, Jackson stood between them and Elara. I don't want blood, Bane sneered. Just the girl. She belongs to me. Jackson stepped forward. You want her. You go through me. Bane smirked. That can be arranged. The shootout was fast and brutal. 2 of Bane's men dropped first, Jackson's aim as sharp as ever. But Bane clipped him across the ribs before running for cover. Elara, with shaking hands, picked up a fallen revolver and fired once, just once, straight into the marshal's leg. He went down hard. I don't belong to anyone, she said. Chapter 5, Redemption Road. They didn't stay in Del Oro. Couldn't. Jackson's side bled through his shirt as Elara helped him onto the wagon and drove them toward the hills, away from towns and law and all the pasts chasing them. By the time he healed, they were holed up in an abandoned ranch house nestled in a valley so quiet, the wind seemed afraid to speak. It became theirs, bit by bit. Jackson built new fences. Elara planted flowers. She sang again, softly at first, then stronger, as if reclaiming her voice one note at a time. One evening, by firelight, Jackson held her hand. I used to think I was done with life. That I'd burned everything worth loving. She leaned her head on his shoulder. And I used to think I'd never be more than what men made me. They were both wrong. Together, they found something neither of them had words for. Not just love, but peace. A kind of quiet knowing. A promise without needing to be spoken aloud. Chapter 6, A Future Forged in Dust. Years passed. The world moved on. Towns grew, lines were redrawn, and men like Bane faded into stories whispered in saloons. But the ranch in the hills thrived. Jackson and Elara became names spoken with respect in nearby settlements. Folks said she once stared down a marshal and shot the devil out of his knee. They said he'd once dropped fire from the sky, but now only used his hands to build. They never corrected the tales. Because they were too busy living. Every sunset, Elara would walk the porch with a shawl over her shoulders, watching the sky paint the world in gold. Jackson would come up behind her, wrap his arms around her waist, and remind her, every time, that she was not a reward. She was the reason he kept going.